Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, your statistics and sports podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Tracy. Here's Corwin. He's going to say hi.
Hi.
I'm rushing through this because Corwin and I already started talking about stuff that we really should have been recording before we start looking at it, but now we're talking about it. And so I'm really excited to get to this total bullshit that's nothing to do with anything that we were talking about just before we started recording. Corwin, you're locked and loaded. Lay it on me.
You had just mentioned that you did not think the Pro Bowl existed during the year 1940. I will neither confirm nor deny that suspicion. I want to hear from you when you think it would make sense for the Pro Bowl to have originated.
So for me, when I think of like Pro Bowl All-Star games, I think of the first being MLB because they're so fucking old and like, you know, they had a lot of that type of stuff first. And I think theirs was in like 35. And I wouldn't be surprised if you told me the NFL was quite a ways behind because they didn't even start the first Super Bowl didn't even happen until 66 or some shit. Like they were a ways back. So
that's when the Pittsburgh Steelers were created.
So I want to say that if the NFL had a Pro Bowl like scenario, it probably wouldn't have been post Super Bowl, but because they're so much slower moving, in my mind, I can't accept it before 1955.
Okay. The first Pro Bowl was during the 1938 season.
Eat my dick.
With the name Pro Bowl being coined for the first time in 1950.
Okay, all right. I'm actually not far off in terms of the name convention, but that is also not the question. So no points. So we got onto this because I saw a very funny picture on Pro Football Reference's page when we started up for a man by the name of Bernie Masterson, which sounds like the bad guy from an 80s movie with like a fake all-American boy nickname type of thing. But no, he was a real guy. He was born in 1911 in Shenandoah, Iowa, and apparently is still alive. Oh, no, died. He died. Never mind. I didn't see the died part. He died in 1963. He did not live a long time. Wow. So sorry, Bernie. But he made one Pro Bowl. He was an NFL champ. And if you look him up on Pro Football Reference, you'll see that his picture on the website looks more like a headshot than it does the picture of a man who played professional sports. And Corn and I were fixated with this 1 year of his career in 1937, in which he led the NFL in touchdowns with 9 as a quarterback, had 72 attempts in a full 10-game season for him. I should say 10-game season, not full 10-game season. There was more games than that. He completed only 26 of his attempts. That's a 36.1% completion percent, 615 yards for a season, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Corwin Heller, my friend, I asked you who had the second most passing yards or what the number of the second most passing yards was for the 1937 season. You said 850. That would have been good for second.
What? You said you just asked me what the second most passing yards were.
I'm sorry. I asked you what the most was. You gave me the number that would be good for second most. The most passing yards, and I also am so excited to read these names to you. The most passing yards that season was Sammy Baugh of the, I guess, Washington football team at the time with 1,127 yards in a season. 1,127 yards, 8 touchdowns, 14 interceptions that year for Sammy. Pat Coffey of,
I actually know who that is.
You know Pat Coffey of the Chicago Cardinals?
No, Sammy Baugh.
Oh, okay. Sammy Baugh, I think, is a Hall of Famer. I'm gonna look it up.
He
is a Hall of Famer. Yeah. Hall of Famer, 6 Pro Bowls, 4 All Pros, Hall of Fame, All 40s team, 2-time NFL champ, Sammy Baugh. Pat Coffey had 824 passing yards that season, 4 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Then Ed Danowski had 814 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Arnie Herber of Green Bay, 684 yards, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Bernie Masterson was 5th in yards with his 615. Other names in the top 10, Bob Monnett, 580, Ace Parker, 514, Dave Smuckler, 432, Bob Snyder, which whatever, 378, and then George Grosvenor, 325. And man, it really begs the question of what did they expect out of the quarterback role in 1937? Because if you're letting a dude go out there and throw 11 interceptions on the back of 4 touchdowns, like, are you good with that? You let him play a lot. You okay with that for Pat Coffey?
I'm going to even blow your mind on top of that. Just going back to Sammy Baugh. Have you ever heard of him before this?
I must have, because when I heard the name, I thought to myself, that man's in the Hall of Fame, but I literally couldn't tell you why I had that feeling or knew that. So no, I'm going to say no for all intents and purposes. No.
So he was the first prolific passer in the NFL, essentially. He actually had a career high 2,900 receiving or passing yards, which was fucking insane, especially in 1947. Hall of Famer as a quarterback, also a Hall of Famer as a punter.
Really?
And retired with the all-time record for average yards per punt, which is still second all-time to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what else is interesting? His position that's listed on Pro Football Reference from 1937 to 1943 is as tailback.
Yeah, 1930s and 40s football was weird, dude.
Yeah.
He's the first player in league history to intercept 4 passes in a game. He is the only player in league history to lead the league in passing, punting, and interceptions in the same season.
He had 11 interceptions on defense in 1943. What the fuck? He recovered. He forced 15 fumbles in 1947. Are you fucking kidding me? What the fuck am I looking at? This is garbage. And you see, this is part of the problem when you try to do era adjusted stuff, because there's no rules. There was no rules.
He retired with 13 NFL records. 13. 2 still stand today.
You know, it's pretty wild that he retired as one of like the greatest athletes of his sport, of his generation, and then he died like 15 years. Oh no, he died in 2008. I'm still stuck on Bernie Masterson. Okay, so he lived a good long while. Bernie Masterson died like weirdly young. Okay, no, Sammy Baugh lived a long, healthy. Maybe that's why I know his name. He died in 2008. Our lives overlapped. Okay, all right, sure. All right, I can buy this. So 14 interceptions. All right, yeah. Hold on. Just one more. I don't know it yet. I'm gonna look it up. 14 interceptions, right? From Sammy Baugh, led the league. How many interceptions do you think they were getting on defense at that time?
I don't even know how to begin to answer that question. I can't answer that question. I have absolutely no comprehension of how that works.
I can't. All right. So actually, I can't even tell you, because they didn't keep track of player interceptions at that time. I've got team interceptions thrown. Wait, interceptions thrown? No, I want interceptions. Wait, what? So you can't tell me. Wait, that's fucking confusing. How many interceptions? Why does it say thrown? I don't understand why it would tell me the number of interceptions thrown if I'm looking at defense. All right, hold on. 1937 Giants had 30 interceptions. Does that mean that they intercepted the ball 30 times? Yeah, okay. So the 1937 Giants intercepted the ball 30 times. Corwin, Heller, how many interceptions do you think the team with the most interceptions has this year?
It's got to be the Cowboys, and I'll say that they have 17.
It is the Cowboys. They have 25.
When one of those players on that team has 11 by himself, I imagine it's going to be pretty high.
That's actually been an interesting talking point that I've heard recently, because I did not realize that what's his fucking name? Trayvon Diggs was having a mixed-ish season, I guess, from what I've heard. I know I saw a stat the other day that he's been allowing like an insane amount of yards and whatnot, but has been picking off the ball like crazy. Or am I misremembering this?
He himself has given up over 1,000 yards receiving, which is good for, I think, the 5th worst all time by a single player. But has 11 interceptions to go along with it, which is
yeah. Okay, so yeah, you're right. It's oh, no, that's his interception yards. See, I can't find the amount of yards he's allowed in coverage.
It's going to be, I don't even know where to begin to find that off the top of my head. Cornerback.
Okay,
coverage,
so it's
stats.
worse. I got it. I found it. He's allowed 907 air yards per completion and 411 yards after the catch. Yeah, that's a big fucking oof.
It's a solid oof. Ooh, Amani Oruwariye has the 3rd most interceptions in the NFL. Go Penn State.
Yards per completion is 17. So that actually poses a really interesting risk reward or like risk assessment of throwing in Trayvon Diggs' coverage. Like, how much do you value the negative value of an interception versus the positive value of 17 yards per completion? You know what I mean? Like, that's a very interesting, because eventually there's going to be a tipping point. Like, if you were throwing to a guy that had a 50% chance of picking off the ball, or not even a 10% chance of picking off the ball, or a 90% chance of, allowing you to score, like cover the full length of the field, you're taking that chance every fucking time. Because it means in 10 opportunities, you're scoring 9 touchdowns and allowing 1 pick, which who gives a fuck at that rate? But obviously, when you reduce the number of yardage allowed and fiddle with the, I guess, the interception percentage is probably lower than that, but still, it's an interesting math that I wonder how teams process.
And it's one of those things where he is so aggressive as a cornerback. It's allowed him, like, it's a cause and effect. Like, he has 11 interceptions because of how aggressive he is. He's also given up 1,300 yards because of how aggressive he is. And if you are less aggressive, you'll give up less yards, but you'll also get less interceptions. If you were to ask fans, all Cowboys fans would say he's the best cornerback in the NFL and he should be Defensive Player of the Year. They're wrong. If you ask PFF, they'll say he's the worst cornerback in the NFL because he's given up so many yards. And I'll say they're also wrong. It genuinely is a really nice mix in the middle. And at the end of the day, it's worked well enough for the Cowboys. I can't say Trayvon Diggs is the reason they've lost any singular game, but I'm sure he's put them in pretty good position to come back and score, seeing as they also have a really good offense. So I think if you have a prolific offense, it's way more valuable to get those interceptions than it is to give up those yards. And if you're a terrible team that can't score, you're just trying to, prevent them from scoring because you won't be able to, compete. And if you're not going to be able to score off that interception anyway, there's nowhere near as much value from that as just a guy who can lock down coverage.
He is going to be a fascinating case study about what the value of the cornerback position is moving forward, as especially in recent years, as pure coverage has gotten harder and harder and harder. With defensive pass interference becoming significantly more common than it has been in years past. And that's not a new trend. We've been seeing that for years now. As well as
Sammy Ball would be appalled with these pass interference rules. Ugh.
Horrified. Poor Sammy.
Could you imagine Sammy Ball attempting to come back and play quarterback in the NFL today?
Oh, he get burned. Please. He would have to DPI. He would have to hold people. He would be climbing on people's backs, begging them to stop.
I think the fear that would be imposed by just the way the NFL is played today.
I think the fear of the fact that there'd be black people on the field. He would walk onto an NFL field and be like, whoa.
Oh my
Let's not
God.
forget, this is a man born in the 1910s in Texas. This is not a progressive person by all statistical guessing. This is very likely a man, and that goes not even just Texas. 1911, the whites aren't where they are today, and they're not in a good space today.
Could you imagine him sharing a locker room with the likes of like an Antonio Brown? Just an absolute crazy person who also is black and would scare him regardless of what he says when he opened his mouth, but would also scare most people because of what he says when he opens his mouth.
So they call you Mr. Big Chest, huh? I don't know why, but every old-timey Southern white person to me, immediately I have the voice of Foghorn Leghorn in my brain. Immediately, that's the voice that comes to mind. I'm Sammy Bossy.
I mean, anyone who
I say, boy. Yeah,
oh
this
God,
is
I gotta pull up a Foghorn Leghorn just to get it out.
this is not even close to what we had planned on talking about today.
No.
At least we got it out of the way
also,
early.
the stuff I was like losing my mind over when you were talking about the quarterbacks of 1937 was just some of the information about the Pro Bowl is just. Do you watch the Pro Bowl ever?
Like the Olympics, once every 4 years.
Sure. I don't know if I've even seen it that often. Some of the rules and how it worked in the past is fucking fascinating and could be an entire episode for us. So I need you to promise me to avoid any and all information regarding the Pro Bowl until we are able to record a full podcast about the Pro Bowl.
All right, you got it. Which actually works out well. So if you notice, we neglected to drop an episode on Monday yet again, and that was a choice this time. That choice, Corey and I got on to record and combed through headlines to see if we missed anything, and had nothing to talk about. Literally nothing. It would be us forcing something to have happened or to, dredge up some random bullshit to discuss. So we just ended up not recording at all, and instead recorded another new episode of our movies podcast, Juicing the Big Screen. Check it out, talking about Golden Globe nominees and shit. But that's a great idea in the event that it's another quiet week, which it might be, depending. We'll see over the weekend.
Seeing as we'll never get baseball again.
No. But we do have stuff to talk about today. You want to move into our actual topics for today?
Yes.
All right. Well, then let's start with the standing stuff. We have some other stories, I'm sure you guys have seen other stories. There are other stories. We'll get to them. We'll get this out of the way first. Because we are heading into the last week of the regular season. And as it has been the case for the past 3 weeks, as we've been doing these, which we do not usually do, because when it's week 7, who gives a fuck? Now the playoff picture changes. Like no one gives a shit if a 4-3 team is facing off against a 3-4 team, because for all intents and purposes, they're the same in week 7 or playing in week 8, whatever. So who gives a shit? Anyway, last week, there has been movement, and there is a new top dog in the AFC. And can you believe it's the Tennessee Titans are the #1 seed in the AFC, which is the stupidest bullshit on the fucking planet. We just talked last week about how the Titans are nonsense. At least I said the Titans were nonsense. I don't understand them. I don't care about them. The fact that they're here is so disinteresting to me. And yet, because the Chiefs lost a nail biter against the Bengals 31-34, and the Titans smoked the Dolphins 34-3, they're the fucking 1 seed due to tiebreakers, which is hilarious. And it's not like the week 17-18 matchup is really going to help the Chiefs at all, because between the two, they have the harder matchup, as the Titans will take on the Texans week 18, and the Chiefs will take on the Broncos. I'm not saying the Broncos are like a barn burner of a team, but if we're comparing the Broncos to the Texans, I mean, the Texans make the Broncos look like, well, the Chiefs. So,
wow, what a wild season they've had. they've been fucking awful, and then had a stretch where they beat the Bills, Chiefs, Colts, Rams, and Saints all in a row, 5 straight weeks, and have just been piss poor prior and after all of those games. They've lost to the Texans. They've beaten the Jaguars, but let's be honest, that hasn't really said much. They got blown out by the Patriots. They lost to the Steelers, which they should be ashamed of. Squeaked out a win against the 49ers and smoked the Dolphins. Like, I get that they don't have Derrick Henry, and it's a very different team now than they were when they went on that impressive 5-game run. But I don't think I'd put them in the top 4 or 5 teams in the AFC right now.
It's just astonishing how uneven the performance of the AFC as a whole has been this year. The NFC has been relatively consistent, even though the records aren't horribly disparate. Like, they've lost when an NFC team has lost, it has typically been against a very good team. And you go, that makes sense. They would lose against that team. And every team in there has a weird loss or two. But like, the Bengals lost to the Jets. Like, it's been a weird year in the AFC for who had the Dolphins were allowed a 7-game win streak against some decent teams. It's been a weird year in the AFC, even though the records side by side are probably going to be relatively even for strength at the top. It's just like the routes gone to have gotten to this point are just so strange. So anyway, the 1 seed.
I gotta step out for a second. I got some paper towels. I just spilled something.
We'll carry on in your name. The number 1 seed is the Tennessee Titans. They'll be playing the Texans this week. The number 2 seed is the Chiefs. They'll be playing the Broncos this week. Now, I don't know if anything changes because I don't know the tiebreakers about like if the Titans were to lose to the Texans and if the Chiefs were to beat the Broncos. I don't know if their division record, their record within division is one of the tiebreakers that would affect who plays what.
I spilled it.
Corwin. All right, I muted Corwin for him. So I suppose there's a universe in which the Chiefs could take over the Titans to regain their 1 seed and to take the bye week. There we go. But as it stands right now, the Titans have it, and it seems like it'd be a pretty tough thing for them to lose if they win. The number 3 seed, our NFC North division winner right now, no, locked in. I don't see how they could possibly lose it. Is the Cincinnati Bengals at 10-6. So in a world in which the Titans and Chiefs both lose, and the Bengals win, there'd be a 3-way tie at 11-5. I don't know how 11-6. Don't know how those tiebreakers work out. But the Bengals playing the Browns. The Browns are benching Baker Mayfield. That's something we'll talk about in a little bit. So chances are they should be able to walk over the Browns? Question mark. But who the fuck knows? Who the fuck knows? The Browns, I don't think have a lot to fight for right now. I think they have a lot more to gain by learning how their younger players, not quite in the baseball way, but some of the they were practice squad guys, 3rd, 4th stringers could perform. I don't know. This is not a prove it game for the Browns. This is not a go out and pummel game for the Browns. I think the Bengals should probably walk this one in. Do you have any interest in this matchup, Corwin?
Bengals Browns.
Yeah.
Solely because I want to see the Bengals punish the Browns. I want to see the Browns I want the Browns to be broken by the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals are still a rival, don't get me wrong. But I really want to see the Browns just be. Yeah. But other than that, no, I don't give a shit.
All right. So that takes us to our last division winner, which is the Bills are set to take the division for the AFC East. They are playing the Jets, which should be a nice, easy win for them. The Patriots are just below them playing the Dolphins. Now, if the Bills lose and the Patriots win, well, that means that the Patriots would then win the division and the Bills would get relegated to the 5th seed. It doesn't really matter. If we're being honest, but just between these 2 teams, because they are 4 and 5, which means they will be playing fucking each other. So as long as their seeding remains the same, yeah, home field advantage, suck my balls. But in terms of adjusting your opponent, who gives a shit? So both teams would love to win. I fucking get it. Home field advantage matters. I fucking get it. Who cares? So moving on. Those are the teams that have clinched, teams that have not yet technically clinched, but if the season ended, they would be in the playoffs today, are the Colts at 9-7. They're playing the Jags, and the Chargers at 9-7. They're playing the Raiders, and the Raiders are also 9-7. Now, this got brought up on Twitter or Reddit a couple days ago, which is that because the Colts game is first this week, if the Jaguars beat the Colts would be 9-8. And that would mean that the Chargers and Raiders could technically both decide not to play their game, de facto give them a bye week, and then both make the playoffs because they both have a better record than the Colts, which would never happen, but is a hilarious consideration.
In more likely,
more probable.
Thank you. They could both agree to just take a knee on every single play. And then not only would they both make the playoffs, but the Steelers would make the playoffs. So I vote for that one. Hey, if they want to forfeit, I'm not going to say no.
The Steelers would only make the playoffs, though, if they won.
Yeah, but they're playing the Ravens without Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, but they're the Steelers.
Correct, but hear me out.
No.
Okay. Touche. I
don't want to hear.
Big Ben's. I'm going to say it anyway. Big Ben's last game. Yes. TJ Watt going for the all-time sack record. Just needs 1.5 against one of the worst offensive lines in football. I think they're going to be gunning for it. I think the Steelers are going to be all in on this game. I think the Ravens are going to be deflated and defeated because they just have nothing to really fight for other than to ruin it for the Steelers, which again is probably a good amount of motivation for them to begin with. I think the Steelers are gonna come out ahead.
It does not matter to me. I do not care. And that is not because of an anti-Steelers or pro-Ravens bias. It is because in all likelihood, the Chargers and Raiders will play their fucking game. And even if there was the mutual benefit of again, de facto bye week by them not playing, it is a divisional game. They are divisional rivals. And what's better than making the playoffs is preventing a divisional rival from making the playoffs, which either team will get to do with a win. And that is why the Colts will make the playoffs. I have a 99% certainty that they will make the playoffs and that one of the Chargers or Raiders will make the playoffs. So what happens with the Steelers down below? Oh, which is actually just the Steelers and Ravens. They're both not technically eliminated yet. Really doesn't matter. So the Colts get in with a win, and they get in with one of the Chargers and Raiders losing. So that's what will happen. I prefer it if the Chargers won. Maybe the Raiders. No, the Raiders. Let's go Gruden. Sorry, let's go Madden. I forgot which head coach we were praising. It's not John Gruden. It's Madden. Let's go Madden. I don't really care about the Colts' presence. They don't do anything for me. It is funny though that Carson Wentz will have made the playoffs with his new team, as the Eagles will also be making the playoffs with their new quarterback. I guess that's truly mutually beneficial.
Sure. I guess Carson Wentz needed to get out of Philly, and Philly sure as hell found themselves a new quarterback that I prefer. So, yeah.
Also,
just beneficial.
Just shout outs to the Indianapolis Colts GM, who has managed to make the playoffs 2 years in a row with veteran quarterbacks coming in their first year in the system.
Oh, I would give just so much money for Chris Ballard to be the GM of my favorite team.
He's done an amazing.
Love the Steelers GM, but Chris Ballard arguably one of the best, if not the best GM in football.
I mean, this is an incredible feat. To make the playoffs in the first season from moving on from a quarterback is already very difficult. They've now done it twice with two wildly different quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Phillip Rivers, who was like shoulder throwing a lob by the end of his career, got them to the playoffs. And then Carson Wentz, who's coming off of being a medical mystery at this point in his fucking career, he gets them to the playoffs. To be able to do that with the roster is amazing.
The Colts have a lot of experience with medical mysteries at quarterback, so
that's true. That's true. So yeah, the rest of the AFC.
Could you fucking imagine this team if Andrew Luck didn't retire?
Dude, no. But you know what? It might end up being worse. It might end up being a worse team because that's the tough part about being the one dude in your group that does all the work, man. They don't think that you need any extra resources. You're doing fine. You got this guy. He's killing it.
I know. But Chris Ballard is so fucking good at like drafting players that like I think they would have found that success anyway.
I think you're probably right, but yeah. So anyway, that's the AFC playoff picture. Really not much can substantively happen here. Obviously, there is a situation in which there could be a super fun 5-way tie at 11-5 or 11-6. If the Texans beat the Titans, the Broncos beat the Chiefs, and then the Bengals beat the Browns, Bills beat the Jets, and Patriots beat the Dolphins, the top 5 teams in the AFC playoff hunt would all be 11-6. That would be kind of fun. The likelihood of that, though, is pretty small. It requires the Jets winning a game and the Texans winning a game. That's a lot to ask for those two teams. So in all likelihood, the only real undecided spot is the 7th seed, which whatever, who cares? All right. Well, that brings us then over to the NFC, which is all largely locked in. There is a one spot yet to be determined. So the number 1 seed is still the Packers. They play the Lions this week. They'll probably walk away with a win in that game, as the Lions have only won 2 of their contests this season. And they'll likely then hang on to their bye week at 13-3. They have a 1-game advantage over the Rams and Bucks, both at 12-4. But again, the likelihood of that changing is just so slim, it's non-existent. Right? Who would bet on the Lions to beat the Packers at this point?
Degenerate gamblers. Guys who lost it all on the ponies.
I just need this one last part of my parlay to hit and I can get the house back, honey.
You bet it on the Lions beating the Packers?
The odds were 9,000-1. I couldn't not. All right. I'm just shouting in my apartment. The Rams are playing the Niners this week. That game will have a lot of implications for what happens with the Niners. We'll get there in a second. They're going to win their division in all likelihood. The Cardinals, who are the second place team in that division, and the 5 seed are playing the Seahawks, which it's the Seahawks of this season, which are 6-10 and not good. The Cardinals have hit kind of a mediocre stretch. I don't want to say a skid, but a mediocre stretch for that team so far for this latter quarter of the season. But I'd put money on them to win their game. I don't know. I don't think the Rams would lose this spot. I'll put it that way.
Sure.
But
I don't think so either.
We'll get there in a second. Either way, the division winner will be one of the Cardinals or Rams. In the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the 3rd seed as they've won their division. They have no ability to lose it. Even if the Saints win this week, they'll only be 9-8. The Bucs losing put them at 12-5. So they're locked into one of the top 4 seeds, the highest they could go. I don't know about the tiebreakers. They could pass the Rams, go to the 2nd seed if the Rams lose, but I don't know if the Packers lose and the Bucs win, what the tiebreakers are for getting the 1st seed, but also who cares? Cowboys are playing the Eagles this week. It doesn't really matter what happens here for the Cowboys. They're going to win their division no matter what. For the Eagles, there's some implications. We'll get there in just a second. So seeds 1-5, just again, Packers, Rams, Bucks, Cowboys, Cardinals, all of those teams will make the playoffs. It just kind of matters very slightly what order, and it won't be any great shifts. Now, these last 2 spots can be distributed amongst 3 teams. And it's a lot different than the AFC picture, in which there's a lot more direct competition happening here for it. And what I mean by that is, for the Niners to make the playoffs, they either need to win their game against the Rams to go to 10-7, or for the Saints to lose their game against the Falcons to drop them down to 8-9. Because if the Saints win their game against the Falcons, and the Falcons, who are 7-9, so not a horribly worse team than the Saints, but if they were to win their game against the Falcons, that would put them at 9-8, which means that a Niners loss, I'm assuming based on the tiebreakers, considering the fact that the Saints are still here, would mean that the Saints would make the playoffs over the Niners. Now, the Eagles apparently have clinched their spot, again, I would assume due to tiebreakers. But if the season ended today, they would be the 7th seed. So their seeding can change, but they will make the playoffs. It really comes down to what happens with this Saints, Falcons, and Niners Rams matchup. The Eagles could lose their game against the Cowboys and drop down to 9-8, but it wouldn't matter in terms of their ability to make the playoffs. It would really just matter in terms of if the Saints can pass the Niners and claim what looks to be the 6th seed is what's on the table here. Now, if you ask me which team I'd rather have in the playoffs, it would probably be the Niners. They're a more interesting team. They're a much more put together team outside of the injuries that they have. The Saints being here is kind of a fucking miracle, and feels wholly undeserved. But it is an interesting bit of drama here.
I think the 49ers should make it. Like you said, they are a woefully better team than the Saints, just through and through. But the idea of Taysom Hill basically Tebowing another team, like what happened in 08, is just too appetizing to pass up. I want to see that happen.
And that's honestly the more likely scenario, because again, for the Niners to make the playoffs, they have to beat the Rams.
Yeah.
And that is not looking good, because the Rams' reason for competing is twofold. It's if they win and the Green Bay Packers lose, I don't know the tiebreakers, but they have a chance to go for the number 1 seed, which every team wants because it's a bye week. And if they win, the Niners don't make the playoffs, assuming the Saints win, which is a huge reason to compete, to keep another divisional rival out of the playoffs. They're already going to have to deal with the Cardinals. Actually, that's the third reason, because if they lose and the Cardinals win, again, I'm not sure of all the tiebreakers, but it would enter into a situation where the Cardinals might pass them for home field advantage by winning the division. There's a lot of reasons the Rams have for putting their foot on the gas here. And there's this has not been a good season for the Niners in terms of fucking consistency, let alone ability.
You have no idea how little that narrows it down. That's just every year for the 49ers.
It really has been. It really has. Ever since that Super Bowl run.
It's fucking wild, yeah. The power going out in that stadium ended that dynasty.
Yeah.
That was a curse that has plagued their house.
It's just wild, man. It's just wild how much we can all look at that team and say it's a good team and yet have them perform the way that they perform.
And it stinks because, man, as you all know, all 4 of you, I adore Kyle Shanahan as a coach, and him finding success makes me vicariously successful. And I want to succeed. So the 49ers need to go win the Super Bowl.
It'd be a true victory for skinny white dudes everywhere.
Last demographic who needs a win right now.
Oh, yeah. It's been real hard.
Skinny white men. Yeah. I live just a dreadful life.
Skinny white dudes with a full head of hair. It's been a rough go for him out there.
solidly middle class, just
Slightly
nothing
above
going
average
my
height.
way. Yeah, slightly,
Slightly. Yeah.
ever so slightly. Okay.
Just a hair. Um, so it'll be an interesting week. It's really settled out the picture a lot this past couple weeks, especially this past week, as teams that are now definitely out of the playoff hunt that were in it just moments ago. The Dolphins at 8-8, they're again spanking last week really thrust them out of their ability to make the playoffs. The Vikings, Falcons, Browns, Broncos, all at 7-9, all got formally eliminated the other day. They all lost last week. Such is life. They're all bad. They all deserved to lose last week. And finally, the Washington football team also somehow was clinging to a sliver of hope that they would be able to, I guess, take over the Eagles' position in the standings. Also lost to the Eagles last week, so they have also been eliminated. Speaking of Washington, they're supposed to be announcing, I think next week or some shit like that, their new logo and team name. We talked about it a lot over the past like 2 or 3 years.
Yes. According to fucking who was it? Boomer, Eisen.
Esiason.
I've never been able to pronounce it right, so I just kind of go with the least amount of syllables as possible.
Go Jets.
He says that it's going to be the Admirals, which I don't really like, and it also doesn't make much sense. They're not a port city, so that
I was
doesn't
going to
make any
say,
sense.
I mean, there's the Naval Academy in Annapolis, but like, how much do you tie
Not in
Annapolis
DC.
to DC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's closer to fucking Baltimore than it is DC.
Oh, significantly.
Um,
I don't like that. I also don't
Yeah.
like the it feels very lazy, the go-to for a military thing, especially for football. You know, like general colonels, like, you know, admirals. I don't know, it just feels so lame. I'm not saying most of the other teams have creativity. I mean, like the Giants, who named themselves after an already existing Giants football team. Half these teams are fucking animals. Like, I'm not saying there has to be an abundance of creativity, but man, something about the military ones really just irk me.
Annapolis is actually a pretty good halfway point between Washington and Baltimore. It's like a triangle type of
Yeah,
thing.
but if you're gonna
it is closer to Baltimore, so
if you're gonna start claiming nearby things as your own, I mean, like, because DC is for all intents and purposes its own. I want to say state, but I know it's a big contentious issue. It should be a state, but it's not a state. But it's got the personality of a state. Whereas, I mean, like, I don't think there's anybody in DC going like, yeah, Annapolis, DC East, or some shit like that. Like,
yeah. Fucking,
like if
I'm
you
from
live,
Washington, baby. Maryland for life.
yeah, like that's just no, not really, not really.
I think they should stick with the idea of something with the US government there, name it something after them, keep with the heritage they already have, and just name themselves the Washington Whiteskins, because that's everybody there anyway. Oh, proud of that one.
I hated that one, I think, the most. I
knew you would.
They should name themselves the Washington Parliament, but Parliament like the band and not Parliament like the government. And their mascot should be a man dressed as George Clinton.
Oh,
like
man, honestly, if they named themselves the Clintons, the Washington Clinton,
I was gonna say the Clintons.
I would love it just for the memes alone.
If George Clinton was from DC, I was gonna say they should be the Washington Clintons, because that'd be fucking hilarious. What's some good Washington DC based groups? Because I'm pretty sure Parliament is actually from Jersey.
I don't know anyone who's from Washington, D.C.
Is Funkadelic? No, wow, Funkadelic's Jersey too. They're both Jersey. That makes sense. There's a lot of crossover there. All right, hold on.
I Googled Washington, D.C. rappers. And the first guy that came up is named Fat Trell.
No idea. Fugazi's from DC.
Oh my God. Please look up Fat Trell because he has one of the scariest mugshots I have ever fucking seen in my life. I should not be yelling because wow, this is
Oh my God, that's horrifying. I appreciate you, Fat Trell.
There are a lot of people I would not want to see in an alley at night. Fat Trell has to be up there. He is one of the scariest human beings I've ever seen in my life. Like
Good for him, man.
There is no soul left in those eyes. Also, anyone who has a cross tattoo between their eyes is terrifying. That is like one of the scariest tattoos you can have.
Anybody who has a cross tattoo, I don't trust you. No,
you love Jesus that much? Get out of here.
You need him in you and on you? I don't know. Yeah, it seems like you're doing a lot.
Oh God, we have to word that better. Are we not doing phrasing?
I worded that exactly how I wanted to.
In you and on you.
Oh,
my girlfriend likes me.
Yeah. All right. Yes, that's all I got, I guess, for the standing stuff. Do you have anything else?
If he named the team the Dan Snyders, do you think anyone would be upset and or surprised?
Everyone would be upset. No one would be surprised. Okay, hold on. Peaches and Herb is from DC.
Don't know who that is, but boy, that's a phenomenal name.
All right. Well, you should look up Peaches and Herb because they're great. And if they were either the Washington Peaches or the Washington Herbs, I would be so down for that. Actually, Washington Peaches is kind of a dope name. I know that everyone would associate it immediately with Georgia, but like the reasoning, because imagine Washington Peaches and everything's like super psychedelic, like 60s and 70s. That's pretty cool. I would totally be down with this. Also, the Blackbirds are from DC. And the Washington Blackbirds would actually also be a pretty cool name.
United and it feels so good.
There you go.
Yeah, I now know who Peaches and Herb are. That's gonna be stuck in my head for a long time.
Washington Blackbirds. Also a good name.
Fitting
just saying.
For the military and the music. And there's nothing that people love more than military music.
That's what we're all about. Yeah. All right.
I saw one that was the Washington Guardians, and I think that would be probably the funniest just because a team literally just changed their name from a racist Indian caricature to the Guardians. And that would be the most quintessential Washington thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
Just
so I'm going down a whole different rabbit hole at this point, so we got to move on. Antonio Brown did some wild shit this week during a game in which the Bucs were losing to the Jets, which this is the one loss that actually really burned deep in my soul this season. The Bucs were losing for like 57 minutes of that game, and in the second half, Antonio Brown was like, "Fuck y'all, motherfuckers! I am out," and took off his clothes and left the stadium. And obviously, there's a lot of outrage over it. but if you've been following the Antonio Brown story for the past 3-4 years
4
now,
years. Yeah.
this really is just sad. This is just so sad. Obviously, he's done or been accused of some very bad things, especially in the past few years. But man, seeing a dude whose life got so fucked up by CTE like this is brutal.
I will take it to my grave that the hit on Antonio Brown in the playoffs by Vontaze Burfict was the absolute catalyst for this. I know it can't be the singular sole event that caused it. I mean, I think
it feels like it though.
To an extent, we've learned that is from repeated hits over and over again. But since that hit in the 2016 playoffs or
that
week
sounds right.
17,
no,
it was either the week leading into the playoffs or the playoffs themselves. It's been a dramatic change in character, and it absolutely when this all kicked off.
Well, and they say that brain injuries are much easier to continue to get once you get the first one. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was such a large hit that it ended up producing more over time. Because I know it feels like a while since then, but prior to that hit, Antonio Brown was
16.
Really, he was like looked upon as being a very nice guy, like a very good representation of Steelers football, a good representation of just like a nice dude.
Super friendly,
a non-dramatic
fans,
wide
media,
receiver.
everyone. Yeah.
Like he was everything you'd want in a fucking player. And
oh god, I'm watching Hit again. And
it's brutal. It's so brutal. And you know, to see him because look, the Bucks ended up winning the game. Losing to the Jets obviously sucks because they're a very bad team, but it's not the end of the world, especially when you're leading your division by as much as you are. And for him to have that kind of break in a game that I think he was playing well, and I'll pull up his stat line on it. I mean, that's not just him quitting on his team. That's a man who's suffering from something mentally that needs to get it fixed, or that
you don't
that
just
needs
do
to.
that.
Right.
Especially when I know you want to point at 10 different things. The man was going to make $1 million over the next 2 weeks for getting just the most bare bones statistics that he's been getting. He would have averaged those anyway. You don't just turn back like there's nothing pointing to why he would be motivated to do something like that in a rational mindset.
Right. Real quick, his stat line for the game was 5 targets, 3 receptions, 26 yards.
God. I mean, it's almost unbelievably certain that his career is over, correct?
So I've been seeing constant updates from probably Schefter saying that he has not actually hit waivers yet, which means that the Bucks haven't formally cut him yet.
Mm-hmm.
So they might not. I mean, it could be an internal decision that is still pending. Brady might be arguing pretty hard for him over there, as apparently that's how he got the gig in Tampa in the first place.
Yep.
We're probably not really going to know until Sunday if he plays. And even then, I wouldn't be surprised if they told him, look, you're sitting out for a week and then as punishment, and then had him play in the playoffs, or even just waited to see how the team did without him in that spot and decided if they needed him for the playoffs or something like that. But no matter what, regardless, he is still currently a Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
Good to know.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, folks. So that's what's going on with that. It's really it doesn't feel like it's too much of a story right now because there's only so much to say about it. I think the more interesting story for the NFL right now is that Baker Mayfield will not be playing Week 18 with the Tampa Bay with the fucking Cleveland Browns. You stupid meaningless city. He is being benched. I don't really know why. Maybe because the Browns don't think it's worth it. Who the fuck knows? But he's not playing Week 18, which means his season is over. And now there's a lot of discourse around what's supposed to happen with Baker Mayfield after this year. This was the 4th year of his rookie contract. There's a 5th-year player option or team option for a fucking 5th fucking year. And this was the worst year of Baker Mayfield's career so far. Wow, he has finished with a quarterback record of 6 wins in 3 out of his 4 seasons in the NFL. That's wild. 6-7, 6-10, 11-5, 6-8. He has a career low in both completions and attempts. And with the exact same number of games as he had in 2018 and fewer games than he had in 19 and 20. So a little bit with the counting stats and understanding of why it might be lower than the last 2 years at least, but this is lower than 2018 as well. Lowest yards of his career, second lowest completion percent of his career, lowest touchdowns of his career. Oh God, he threw 21 interceptions in 2019. I totally forgot that. 13 interceptions this year, which is the 3rd highest of his career, 2nd lowest of his career, but that's not really good. He's just been throwing a lot of them. So, he has the lowest adjusted or yards per attempt of his career, the 2nd lowest adjusted yards per attempt of his career, 2nd lowest yards gained per pass attempt of his career, the 2nd lowest quarterback rating of his career, the lowest quarterback rating or QBR of his career, most sacks of his career. And absolutely nothing else that's interesting I can share at the moment. It's bad. And if I could go through the advanced passing stats and adjusted passing stats too. They're all bad. It's all the worst or 2nd worst of his entire career. And man, where do you stand on what the Browns should do at quarterback?
There's absolutely no way he returns to this team next year. I mean, I don't think he is the starter for an NFL team next year. I don't.
Oh, really? For an NFL team?
For an NFL team. I mean, outside of injuries and, him signing with the team or being promoted to, the starting role because of injuries or some other, unforeseen circumstance like that, I don't think he's a starting quarterback. And if he is, I don't think it's long-term because he doesn't ever look like a starting NFL quarterback. And I get that you can say that about a handful of guys in the league, but.
So I was going to say, so you think that there's 32 quarterbacks better than him?
I think it's close.
So how would
I think there's like 28 to 32, 33, 34 quarterbacks in the league better than him. I say that I don't have a list in front of me, so I can't say for certain. But if I was a team in the NFL, I would not want him as my starting QB. He may be better than some of the young rookies or, a rookie coming into the league. I wouldn't want him. I would much rather have a young guy that there's hope for than anything we've seen out of Baker Mayfield.
What would you rather have, Baker Mayfield or God damn it, what's his fucking name? Son of a bitch.
Davis Mills.
The guy from the Rams who's now on the Lions.
Jared Goff.
Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff?
Rather have Jared Goff.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd rather have Mayfield.
Jared Goff may be as dumb as a doorknob, but if you have a good offensive system, he can run that system and he can make relatively good choices about what to do with the ball while in that system. Baker Mayfield has consistently just shot himself in the foot and been the reason the Browns have failed for the past 4 seasons. Maybe not exclusively him all of those years, but this year especially, he is the reason the Browns have not won the AFC North. Because the rest of that team was excellent.
What would you do? Because an interesting situation that we could see shake out, and depends on how the Texans view Davis Mills. But as it stands right now, according to Tankathon, the Houston Texans have the number 3 pick in the draft, which means they'll probably get a top 2 quarterback depending on what Detroit wants to do. Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence. They're not taking a quarterback. The Lions probably should. Jared Goff is not a long-term solution there, which means the Texans, if they wanted to, could take a quarterback. You're shaking your head. You don't think they will?
I don't. As of now, everything I've seen for the QB class for this next year, there's not a guy that should be taken top 10.
So I was going to say, either way, really, whether the Texans decide to draft a quarterback with the number 3 pick or retain Davis Mills as he is. How old is Davis Mills?
22.
23.
Okay.
They could bring in Baker Mayfield just to have a quarterback room.
They could. It depends on what they do with Deshaun Watson. Because that would be a lot of money based. I'm just saying money-wise, that's a lot of money to have invested in a QB room that's not playing.
That's what I was going to say. It also depends on what happens with the contract, because they should not do what the Panthers did, which is trade for Sam Darnold and then pick up his 5th-year option. I
have no idea who would trade for Sam Darnold or trade for Baker Mayfield at this point, especially after that extension was signed.
Oh my God, I forgot about the extension. Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's the issue. I totally fucking forgot about it. When's he signed through?
The end of next season, 2 seasons.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up.
I'm pulling it up on Spot Track. He signed through 2022.
And next year, his cap hit is just under $19 million.
Yeah. Which is probably fine if you're the Browns. You will trade him for anything you can get, but if not, I think you eat that money. Let's see. Let's see what the Browns situation is. Where the fuck am I looking now? 2022 Cleveland Browns update. They have 36.5 million in total cap space with Baker Mayfield's. He would have, his cap hit is 18.9, so it's all guaranteed.
Yeah, it's all fully guaranteed.
And
we know it'd be funny.
What
would be funny is if fucking Carson Wentz retired, as all Colts quarterbacks do after their 1 season there, and then they traded for Baker Mayfield and then made the playoffs again.
It would be funny.
They're pretty fucking funny.
The way that happens. At least Carson Wentz has proven that he has the ability to be an NFL quarterback and play at a near MVP level. And the yips were more of a almost a mental thing rather than just, I don't know. Honestly, Baker Mayfield might just be incredibly mental too, because when he gets in his right headspace, that just mojo, dog on a chain kind of fighting attitude, he's fucking great. The problem is that's very rare at this point. I don't know. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, well, all those fucking
if
Baker's House commercials, I'm sure didn't help.
Stupid commercials. I hate those so much. If he wants to re-sign for another 10 years in Cleveland, fine by me. Fine by me.
Well, and it's tough to know what the Browns' alternative is, especially if the incoming quarterback class for the draft isn't very good, because it's tough to know what else they could really do. I mean, the other quarterbacks on the Browns roster right now are, let's see, hold on, I had it up. Fuck. Okay. Case Keenum and Nick Mullins. That's shit. That's total shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real question, because it's it's easy for us to sit here and say that Baker Mayfield had an ass season, at least by his standards, or by what the Browns need to be successful. and they should move on from him. Because the tougher part of that is with whom? Because the Browns are not in a spot where they could draft a good quarterback in the draft, theoretically speaking. They have the 13th pick in the draft. And from what you're saying, if there's not a quarterback worth picking in the top 10, that means that no one else is really a shining example of what to do. Now, the Browns could still spend their first round pick on a quarterback if they think that there's somebody of good value at 13. But with that dearth of talent entering into the NFL, it's basically going to be status quo or worse for next year. That's the tough part.
Oh man, I don't know why I thought Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson were free agents in 2022. Probably because they've been talked about so heavily about, finding new teams and things like that. That is not the case. Jameis Winston might be the best quarterback who's available as a free agent. Teddy Bridgewater, Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky.
This is awful. This is getting worse by the second.
Andy Dalton, Cam Newton. So I guess I should backpedal heavily and say that I think Baker Mayfield would be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in 2022.
Yeah, it's
hard to find an out here.
Really, I think the pivot is, instead of pivoting away from Baker and to somebody else, I think if you're the GM of the Browns, the pivot is away from building around Baker Mayfield, and the pivot is to building a team that you can insert a new quarterback into. So you're no longer going to construct in the offseason and the draft a team that's suited to Baker Mayfield's strengths. You're going to start building a team around the concept of the fact that you're going to have to replace your quarterback soon.
The 2018 draft is just fucking hilarious. Baker Mayfield goes first. Sam Darnold goes third. Josh Allen goes 7. Josh Rosen goes 10. And then all the way down to 32 is Lamar Jackson. God, how that could have been. Like, I remember watching this draft, seeing Baker get taken first and being like, wow, that's so surprising. I'm amazed that they like Baker so much. And how different the Browns' just whole perspective can be. It's just for that one little change, which, granted, that can be said about literally every draft for literally every team, literally ever. But man, it's especially hilarious for them.
So for this upcoming year's draft, there are 3. I'm looking at the mock draft from Tankathon just to get a peek at what they're thinking, what someone's thinking about where quarterbacks go. And they have 3 quarterbacks being taken in the first round, which is really quite a drop off from what we've seen in recent past, where it feels like there's 5 quarterbacks that go in the first round every year. They have the 6th overall pick, Carolina, getting Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. I'm sure you're going to think that's high.
Which pick? Sorry.
6.
High for value, probably what would actually happen. I mean, quarterbacks just don't,
For the 9th pick, going to the Washington team, they have Matt Corral, quarterback out of Ole Miss. Corral. And no comments on that? I don't know anything about these guys, so I rely on you for information.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't know. What pick was it again?
9.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's not where they should be taken, it's where they need to be taken. So are there going to be 2 or 3 quarterbacks taken in the first 15 picks? Yeah, absolutely. There always is. I mean, if you had to put them in order, I probably would put it Pickett, Corral, Sam Howell, Desmond Ritter, really something in there somewhere.
I was looking for he's good. Good ball.
He's fun.
Good.
Yeah,
he gets some quick release.
Athletic. not the most accurate, but
Yeah, the elevator pitch scouting report.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I guess I should note, if Panthers take Kenny Pickett or take a quarterback, that puts on the market Cam Newton if he doesn't retire, and Sam Darnold, which is probably neither of whom would be an improvement over Baker Mayfield at this point in their careers.
And PJ Walker.
Oh, they probably retain him, wouldn't they? His contract isn't up, is it? It's up this year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nah, well, then yeah, PJ Walker. If Washington takes a quarterback, that puts what, fucking Taylor Heineke on the market? Right?
Yeah, maybe. Unless I could see him staying just because, I doubt he's going to find any more success anywhere else.
I'm just trying to think of, like, for the Browns where they could get other players from. Yeah, Taylor Heineke. Oh my god. So, it's a whole other rabbit hole. I'm not sure I want to go down it. But what's your? I want to see your reaction to this. Taylor Heineke has more passing yards than Baker Mayfield. Corwin has taken off his glasses.
Yeah, I can't say it's surprising. Really funny though.
Yeah, Taylor Heineke's completion percent is 5 points higher than Baker Mayfield's. He has more touchdowns.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, oh my god, this is Taylor Heineke has 36 sacks, 35 sacks in the season, and that's still fewer than Baker Mayfield has. Man, that's really putting into perspective Baker Mayfield season for me. Oof. So anyway, the last quarterback they have taken in the first round, there will be others. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Is Malik Willis out of Liberty?
Yes.
Going 30th overall to the Detroit Lions. Which again really wouldn't put anybody on the market. It would put, I guess, Jared Goff out there. But I'm sure he'd be expensive. I don't know. Marginal improvement. I'm not sure it's worth the headache for the Browns.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's an interesting dilemma for them to have to be in. I think this year will probably end up having to be the last year of them, year of Baker. I think no matter what, whether it's via trade or they're not, I don't think they're going to give him a second contract, but I think he'll be there this year to ride out the one they gave him already.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to play out. I don't see how they would ever see value that would say, "Hey, Baker Mayfield, we're gonna give you a second chance, a third chance, whatever it is." They'd want to move on. They have too complete of a team outside of Baker Mayfield to give him more opportunities.
I'm going to close this question or this topic on this question. Who makes the playoffs first? The Jets or the Browns?
The Browns, mostly because I think they are a quarterback away, and their path to the playoffs is significantly easier than going through, the Jets need a lot of help. And I think that, getting past the Bills and the Patriots is still going to be a mighty toll.
Yeah, I would agree for the exact same reasons. The Browns roster is way more put together than the Jets is. But it's also wild to look at these two teams that feel so miles apart in terms of roster construction, and the Browns have 2 more wins.
Right.
That's really fucking ugly. So anyway, all right, that's it for the NFL. One quick topic on MLB before we wrap up for the day. Ken Rosenthal, who is currently a writer for The Athletic, has been for quite some time, had been a longtime contributor to MLB Network and had been one of their in-game sideline reporters and that type of stuff when MLB Network has had access to broadcasting rights to MLB games. He has been let go, or at least his contract has not been picked up again by MLB Network in what is being seen as a retaliatory move, as he has been vocal in his criticisms against Rob Manfred. And for that reason, he is not being brought back. And
for that reason, I don't know.
it's an interesting story in that just because you know something is the way it is doesn't mean that when it happens you aren't surprised, or you don't, it doesn't elicit a certain emotion. Like we all know Rob Manfred's a bad guy, and people who are in power in general are very petty and small and would do this type of shit. But it's still like, oh, look, they actually did it. That sucks. I'm surprised they actually are. I have a feeling about this, even though I expected it. And that's kind of where I'm at anyway. I'm not surprised in the slightest. I'm annoyed. I feel bad for Ken Rosenthal. He seems like he's a nice enough guy, I guess. But I'm not surprised by this.
Do you think this is enough for us to get rid of Rob Manfred?
Oh, us? I'm personally ready to get rid of Rob Manfred like years ago.
You know what I mean?
It's not. The owners don't care about this type of stuff. The most surprising part about this is that Manfred cares enough about this, because the thing about suppressing negative opinions about yourself and your actions from members of the media is that you'll never do it. It'll never work. You will never fully suppress contrasting opinions to or negative opinions of your actions and personality and the manner in which you run your whatever it is you run. And
it's almost like you could learn that from the entirety of human history.
Yeah, like any singular moment in history, every single political uprising, anything. Look at like Rob Manfred. I can't believe he's so desperate to build himself a bubble like this, and I can't believe he thinks not bringing back Ken Rosenthal will help. That's the part I think that really feels surprising for me, is that why is this even on your radar? How are you this small in the scope of it? Like you're gonna get criticized by other fucking people, you big dumb idiot.
This is what happens when you have nothing else to do, because you're sure as hell not negotiating with the players union. So you're just sitting on your ass all day on Twitter, reading all the mentions.
That's true. It has been reported that there has been zero substantive talks between the two sides in the past 3 weeks, which is bad. So it does beg the question of Bobby Manfred's what the fuck's you doing? But Corwin and I were joking that I was going to get worked into a frenzy over this, and I could work myself up into a nice, good lather anytime. But it's tough to over this. It feels
there has to be a better way to say that.
No. That was the best way I had on deck. It sucks for Ken. He's got another job. He works for the Athletic. He'll be on TV somewhere. I'm sure ESPN will pick him up or something like that. Yeah, it sucks. MLB blows. We all knew that already.
Yes, we did.
But shout out to Ken for being you.
Agreed. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Well, I've been yawning for the past 20 minutes, so we're going to get out of here. Corwin, you got anything else?
Absolutely not.
All right. Well, if you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. Like to hit us up via email, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. If you'd like to follow Corwin on Twitter, you can do so at Corwin Hellner. If you'd like to follow myself on Twitter, you can do so at Joshua D. Tracy. And until Monday, you all have a good one.
Bye.